So thank you everyone for joining us today. Welcome to the Venture Cafe. This is our third virtual Venture Cafe. Just some ground rules. Please keep yourself unmuted unless you are asking a question. Please use the chat box to ask your questions and I will make sure to read them to the presenters. Today we have Deb Kemper in the room, who is the managing partner of Golden Seeds, and Leslie Feinzaig, who is the founder of Female Founders Alliance. Leslie, Deb, on to you.
Okay, Leslie, do you want to go first and do your intro and then I'll do mine?
Sure. Hi, everybody. My name is Leslie Feinzaig. I'm getting a message that says my internet is unstable, so I apologize if I, can you hear me okay?
We can hear you.
Okay, great. My name is Leslie Feinzaig. I was supposed to be in Boston with you guys today. I'm really sad that I can't be there in person, and I'm really excited for when all travel restrictions lift and we can all see each other once again. But as it is, I am dialing in from my basement in Seattle, Washington, where I've been quarantined for nearly 3.5 weeks. So that's not why we are here today. I am the founder and CEO of the Female Founders Alliance. I used to be the person that you hired for your company. I'd been in tech or strategy consulting for 15 years. I had an MBA, like a fancy MBA from Harvard, and all this executive experience. And 4 years ago, when I was pregnant with my oldest daughter, I decided to quit my job and start my own company, like many of you have as well. And I launched a company in the education technology space called Venture Kits, and I bootstrapped it. And, I think I cold called every mommy blogger in America to get that product in front of parents and in front of kids. And it really had great traction, and it really resonated with a lot of those parents. And the irony is that if my company was still around today, it would be really great for parents who are quarantined with kids at home, because it was a homeschooling edtech product. But as it was, even though I had all of that traction on my own, once I decided to go out and raise venture capital, it was sort of like I went from being the hot hire to the cute mommy hawking her kid's product from her basement. It was a very minimizing experience, and it's not like I expected it to be easy, right? Like I had been in startups at that point for long enough to know that it would be hard, but I also expected it to be fair, and it wasn't. And up until that point in my career, I had never realized, like it never hit me that I might be having a different professional experience for the fact of my gender. But at that point, it became clear that I was. This was the winter of 2016, 2017. And when I was out in the pitching and fundraising circuit, I started a Facebook group, and I added every woman I knew who was founding and leading venture scalable startups, because I wanted to know what experience they were having and how they were facing it. And that first month, February 2017, there were 25 CEOs, all based here in Seattle at that time. And over the next 3 years, that community grew from 25 to 20,000. Not all the 20,000 are founders. We have about 1,500 VC scalable companies that are verified through the Female Founders Alliance. We run events in every major tech hub. That's why we were supposed to be in Boston today doing this with you guys in person. We run a national accelerator once a year that's been dubbed the Y Combinator for Female Founders by TechCrunch. We are dedicated to accelerating female founder success by giving founders access to the people and organizations that can move their business forward, whether that is one-on-one connections with hundreds of VC firms and angel investors or angel groups from all around the country, connecting our founders with with media so that you can amplify your messages, connecting our founders with partners for business development opportunities, for go-to-market opportunities, and even for M&A opportunities. We pay for ourselves with corporate partnerships with people like Microsoft for Startups, a bunch of law firms like Cooley, WSGR, Davis Wright Tremaine, IBM is one of our partners, Brex, JP Morgan is one of our partners, Silicon Valley Bank, and corporations all across North America who want to meet you. They want to meet all of these female-founded companies that have the opportunity to be tomorrow's public companies. You know, with the change in environment that happened all of a sudden, we have moved all of our efforts online for the foreseeable future. So we're running bi-weekly forums with, like we always have, with like high profile founders and investors, and anywhere from 50 to 300 founders are dialing in. And that was before we had a pandemic. We have our first post-pandemic forum next week, April 2nd, with Brad Feld, who is one of the founders of Techstars and the founder of Foundry Group. So he's going to be joining us to talk about managing your startup through a period of crisis, because he's been through, well, 3 of them at this point, at least in the 2000s. And with that, one other thing that I will say, as you throw out your Q&A today, is that we, you know, one of the things that has been really important for us at the Female Founders Alliance is to understand exactly what role you need us to play as the environment changes. Right, like these are not the flush VC times of before. So if you can believe it, it's going to be even harder for female founders to get funding going forward. And it's just like, that was nervous laughter. That's not actually funny. That's just like, oh crap. And so we've put out a survey to all of our founders to understand what they're doing, what they're going through, because you know there's a lot of like advice coming at us, but we really want to know, what are they actually doing? What are you actually doing? And how can we best serve you? And so I can draw a little bit from the early results of that survey and kind of reflect back to you what other founders are doing and what other founders are thinking about. And then what we are hearing from the investors in the community, because we started surveying and talking to them as well about, like, are you actually interested in meeting new founders and developing new relationships in this time? So with that, it's an honor to be here with you guys. Really wish I could see all of your shining faces right now, but I'll settle for Deb.
Hi, everybody. Thanks, Leslie. So this was supposed to be an interactive between us on stage, and so it's been really interesting. This is my first time I've done lots of webinars and things. I've never done sort of this fireside chat, but let me quickly give the audience my background, and I guess I'm on the other side of the table, for lack of a better phrase, from Leslie. I come at this from the investor side, but quickly on my background, was a engineer with an MBA as well. So I have sort of a very data-driven focus in what I do. I spent the bulk of my traditional career in consulting, and then started doing more entrepreneurial things when we were traveling for my husband's job around the world, and actually spent 4.5 years in China. So I'd say I've been feeling this, what's going on right now since January, as I heard how it was affecting friends and colleagues there with the shutdown. From an investor side, but when I moved to Boston 6 years ago, thinking I would eventually start I would angel invest, be an angel investor, so early stage investor, as a way to find a company I would want to jump into as an operator, and then found out I really liked the investing side of it, and it was a really good use of my consulting background from the strategy and the operations work that I did, and from those clients, as well as my global experience, having lived and worked, because I worked in China and in Peru when we lived there. So I come at this from a different, from that investor angle. As an angel, I ran the Boston Forum for Golden Seeds. So Golden Seeds is a national angel group. We do have affiliated funds as well. That is a different management team. We have 300 angels nationally at any one time. I'm actively looking at and investing in deals. We do have a fund, an active fund right now as well. But again, those are angels make their own decisions. The fund make theirs. I'm happy to talk more about that if folks are interested. You know, we've been at this for 15 years. The group has, so we saw the 08-09 downturn, and then most of the investors, you know, lived through 01-02. We've got investors who come out of Wall Street, and we're actually, you know, on Wall Street during 87. So we've seen a lot of the downturns, and you know, and understand that capital still needs to flow to businesses in these times. Building on what Leslie said, I will kind of put up front, you know, we will see from a gender basis, we saw in 08-09 that the yield rate, so the percentage of women applying, getting funding did go down in 08-09, and then it did seem to rebound a couple years later. It's always lower than men, but at least we did see a dip. You know, you will see a dip in funding for new companies right now, and we can talk about that some more. Just one thing I'll say about Golden Seeds is we've also gone, all our programming now is virtual. We do have office hours. Every region has their own. They've all gone, most of them have gone virtual already. So we offer, you know, 30 minutes one-on-one with one of our investors. So if something doesn't get addressed here, feel free to go on our website and you can sign up for those. So I'll leave it there. And I don't know, Yulia, do you have questions? Or maybe Leslie and I can talk more about what we see now in this current environment.
So we have one question in the chat box right now, and it is coming from Diana Margarita. Welcome, Diana. Thank you for joining us today. So I am a solo female founder. My industry is nautical tourism in the Caribbean. I'm working on building a more automated MVP where nautical travelers can contact and hire service providers across the different islands. In order to hire and create this MVP, I have to get a tech person on board, and costs are high. I guess my question is, how soon is too soon to start looking for funding? Any advice?
I can take a start, and then Leslie, do you want to? So, you know, with angels, I'd say I think it sounds like you're at a stage for kind of what we call friends and family. If you have folks in your network to do it, or can you hire someone as a co-founder to come in with the technical side, or be giving them some share of the company to help you build the MVP? From an investor, I never want to tell anyone like it's an awful time, but like it's gonna be, tourism right now is probably going to be a tough industry to sell into angels unless they come out of the tourism industry and the travel industry, because we know it's going to rebound. But I think it might be a tough time. So you're going to want to start with folks you know and that network that you know, or folks with expertise in that industry. It's very hard to get funding for an MVP, just bottom line. And so, you know, I don't know, Leslie, if you have other ideas from what you've seen from your network, but I know that's always a bit of a challenge at that early stage until you have something that people can really get the look and feel of.
Yeah, I mean, that sounds about right. No matter where you are, I would say you have a couple of things that are going to be challenges. One being, you know, the time, and two being the stage, and three being not having a technical co-founder for a tech product. That's always very problematic. So the first step I would say is like, you know, a lot of people have a lot of time in their hands right now, and like it's a really great use of time now to go find people to work with that might be potential co-founders. One thing that investors don't generally love unless they're very close to you and you're like very proven, is a tech company that has to pay for their tech, right? Like that you don't have like a like somebody with like substantial equity who is, you know, leading your technology roadmap. So now is a really great time to like go build skills in technology, go on like co-founder dating, post on all of your social media, like connect with people to try to find a technical co-founder. So that's the first thing. The second thing is like, is it too early to raise funding? Probably, but it's never too early to build relationships. The number one thing that I'm seeing, all of our VC partner, like so many of our VC partners are saying that relationships matter more now than before, which is like horrifying because, you know, who has the relationships? The same people that always got all the funding. And so if in fact venture capital just doubles down on existing relational networks, that's bad news for all of us. And so the most important thing that all of us can be doing right now is building relationships so that by the time you go out and ask for money, you have a relationship already built. I think a lot of VCs love to meet early stage founders before you need the money. So like the more that you can go out, go do office hours with Golden Seeds. I don't know when we were doing, like we were going to do mentor matching or like investor matching today in Boston in real time. But we're obviously not there today. So we're figuring out how we are going to do our own like cross country matching. But you know, find introductions, ask people to introduce you to their investors, like have virtual coffee meetings, and work on like, you know, it's that sort of like, this is what I'm thinking, this is what I'm going to do, what do you think? Take their feedback and then say, okay, a month later you come back and say, okay, remember when we talked about X, look what I accomplished. And then you start asking for money, if that makes sense, so that like by the time that you raise, you're not coming in cold. I think that's the, you know, a lot of founders think that, or we are told that fundraising is like sales, but it's not. It's actually business development. It's like, it's really about, especially at the early stage, it's about building relationships and proving yourself before you come in and ask for money.
Yeah, if I can jump in on that a little bit, Leslie, what we see from the data that we look at is, you know, men are getting, it goes with what you see in corporate or other companies, right? Which is men get promoted based on potential and women get promoted based on performance. And so what you want to do is start laying that groundwork to show that you can perform and meet milestones or take the knowledge that they say. Because I think you're absolutely right. It's going to be even harder now to be showing performance because, you know, these are very early stage companies. They don't have a track record. That's what we always tell folks, but you have to be doing everything you can to show that you can meet, you know, you can be performing, especially in this environment, which is, you know, I think we're really seeing the CEOs, like I'm really glad that the CEOs I've backed and how they've risen to the challenge here. But as Leslie and I were talking as we were prepping for this, is probably because a lot of women-led companies have learned how to bootstrap and get to revenue quickly. And I think I would focus on ways to do that. I think to also build on Leslie's point about co-founders, I mean, some companies are shuttering, right? There's a lot of VCs who, not a lot, I mean, VCs are saying, you know, who are we going to save and who are we not? And so there will be talent coming back out onto the market, I would project in the next couple months.
Yeah, there's I'm looking at the chat. You tell me how you want to.
Yeah.
Sure. So we have a question from Christine. Leslie, please tell us more about co-founder dating. The three I've talked with had very unrealistic expectations, including equity, salary, a percent bonus for future hires, IP, just terrible. What is a reasonable expectation, and are there founder dating sites?
There's a literal dating site called Cofounder Dating. So, or founder
I didn't know that.
Yeah, that's like a thing. I know people who have their co-founder that way. Not the easiest thing, you know what I mean? So, you know, the fact that they had all of these like very, you know, unrealistic expectations probably means that they're not a good co-founder for you. What I like to recommend to people is to date before you marry, first of all. So anybody that is like interested enough, like being a co-founder is not a job, right? Like it's not, you're not hiring, you're like getting married. Like it's
Right.
that level of, so anybody that looks at it as like, I want this, I want this, I want this, I want this, is probably not in it for a marriage. They're in it for like an employment relationship, which is fine, except like, you know, that's how you should like treat the relationship and the compensation structure. But if you really are looking for a co-founder, my biggest recommendation in general is to bring them on board as an advisor, even as like an equity earning advisor. Work together, see what that feels like, and then convert into a co-founder. That's number one. Number two, you know, equity split structures are, you know, they're non-standard. There's too many different factors that like would go into that equation. And in fact, there's a bunch of like free co-founder equity calculators out there that like ask you a bunch of questions and reflect back to you what like the calculator thinks is the right equity split. The thing that I will tell you is, number one, very few investors will be super excited about solo founders. So I do really think that it's worth finding a co-founder, and like they're worth more than you think they are, right? Like even like I know that we think that like, oh, it's my baby, it's my idea, I put so much into it, but like if it's not going to go anywhere, then it's worth zero, right?
Yeah.
I'll just finish.
Yep.
Remember that when you bring on a co-founder, you're not giving all the equity up front, you're making them vest. And so if that person is not working out for you, they're actually not going to walk away with any equity unless they meet like the year-long cliff. So, even if you give them like 40% of your company, if after like 6 months they're not working out, you like break off the relationship, and like you can give them some equity or not, right? Like if there's a cliff, if there's like a vesting schedule, which there should be attached to their founder agreement, then you're not actually giving up any equity up front. You are like, they are working for it. And if by the end of, right, like they're earning it. And so don't be like afraid of giving up parts of your company to build something a lot bigger together. And then the third thing that I would say is like, this happens to women a lot more than it happens to men. But I like to tell people that it's like, don't just call people a co-founder. Like co-founder is not a title. Like it's a marriage. And when you just use it as a title, it's very obvious to the investor community and to other founders that there's like something out of whack there. I'll give you some examples. If you have an equity split that is 99-1 or like 98-2 or whatever, like that's not a co-founder. Yeah. That's just not. That's like a completely unequal relationship. If you have an equity split that is 50-50, that means that you don't know how to make decisions together. Like you can't agree. So you're just like taking the easy way out and like splitting it in two. So you really have to think about like, just like if for any of you who are married and like went through a period of engagement and like negotiated how to have a wedding together, like it's like very, very similar. You have to be able to negotiate with each other and come to something healthy at the end of it. And that kind of prepares you for making all of these decisions together for your business going forward. So it's almost like if you can't negotiate this part, they're not going to be a good co-founder for you anyway. So I have a lot to say about co-founders because I've had all kinds of like pain in my own startup, from like first lack of co-founders, and then like a bad co-founder relationship, and just
yeah. And I think it depends on the company, right? Because I do think there are companies where people will go with a single founder, right? But it sort of depends on who that person is. There's always exceptions, as I say. There's no like always or never in this world. I think, Leslie, what I want to build on what you're saying is we look at, even though with founders, of how are they rewarding their teams, and so it's not just about, we want people to have skin in the game. And so it's not just the founders, and we always like to say we want founders to keep the lights on, keep a roof over their head. So we understand founders need salary, but it's also then how are they thinking about how they're compensating their key employees. And we get really nervous, or it's a flag for us, if we see someone with 99%, but they've got 8 employees and they only have 1%, maybe to an advisor. Like they're not thinking about how they build that team, to your point. So I think it's really about thinking about how to build that team. And it is hard initially finding that person. I think the person who asked the question, I guess it's Christine, I think trust your gut, right? If they're asking you for too much and unrealistic expectations, then that's probably telling you, that's telling you something. And there are people out there who will do that, who will ask for too much and won't deliver. And so definitely always be thinking about how you gate those stock options or other things going out to people.
Thank you, Deb. Thank you, Leslie. It looks like we're getting more questions. So the next one is coming from Roar. Do you think investors will be comfortable making investments with only being able to meet people virtually? That's a good one.
I've done it. Our network does it, right? Because we've always done, we're a national network. And I think it depends on, it'll depend on the individual, but Folks that have done stuff virtually, we've been doing virtual. We do what we call a national syndication call. We've been doing that for a couple years. And we have every month a different company, and people will invest in that. I think it'll, folks, you've got to learn how to communicate. You've got to, you got to be willing to let things be recorded so people may be able to view it asynchronously, potentially, and be thinking about that. But I've done it, I had a founder, I was actually on their advisory board, and we realized 18 months in, the first time we met in person, it was the first time we met in person. Because we did Zoom and Skype and all of that. And we kind of couldn't believe it. And we're like, no, we actually haven't met in person. You can get really good at doing this online. I think that doesn't matter whether you see in person. But I can't speak for everybody, but I know our network has already been doing this, and we're comfortable with it.
I think that they're going to have to.
It's going to be reality for at least 3 months.
Exactly. Anybody that had like dry powder is going to have to like get with that program. I have closed investors on a phone call before, like before the pandemic. So it is absolutely possible. But yeah, like I think that they're going to have to, and anybody that doesn't is just like going to get left behind.
Thank you. So next one, Diana, any options for co-founders, tech courting, websites or agencies you might know? Thank you so much.
Do you have any, Deb?
For co-founder, sometimes hackathons, and I know some hackathons are going virtual now. I just got one today from one of my alma maters that was doing a virtual hackathon. I think those are always good ways. Sometimes some of the things around accelerators, I think if you go into very early stage accelerators and incubators, and those really vary by region, that those are places to potentially find co-founders among the mentors. I think not all, but some mentors in those groups are going in, trying to potentially go in as a kind of the marketing person or the ops person or the tech person. But I think I hadn't heard of the website Leslie mentioned. I'm going to go check that out, or the app. But I think it'll be interesting, because I used to say go and network. I come from Boston. There's multiple events a day. I'm sure it's similar in Seattle. That's all shifted, and it's been great to see Venture Cafe and CIC really quickly shift to what's going to be the new normal for a while, and it'll see if some other how that starts shifting in this world. But I always say, universities are great. They run so many events when they're back in session in the fall. But I do know a lot, at least for my alma mater. I did my undergrad at Cornell and my MBA at Tuck at Dartmouth. They're shifting almost all their programming online, from what I can tell.
I don't have much to add. So founder dating has been around for a long time. I can't vouch for it. I've never met a founder there. I know somebody who has. You can try it. Like a Google search will get you the same information I have. I would say now is a particularly good time to use social media to try that stuff. So if you have like any number of followers or any relationship with somebody who has good followership, posting on LinkedIn or posting on Twitter, and like posting like, for one thing, as a CEO, assuming that you're the CEO, your first challenge is recruiting a co-founder, and that is going to show you that you're capable of recruiting hundreds of employees after that, right? It's a sales job like any other, and so it's almost like the first challenge to see if you can be a venture scalable founder is, can you convince someone to be your co-founder? So try Twitter, try LinkedIn. I do know people who have found. I found a co-founder through Twitter once. She reached out to me. She loved what I was doing. And we worked together for a while, and she became my co-founder. So that's the only thing that I would add. Like, get really creative about it right now.
I think another thing I would say you made me think of, Leslie, as you were talking was, sometimes those advisor conversations, like, you just reach out to your network, hey, I have this idea, do you know anyone that I should talk to who might have input? I do know founders who that's how they found their co-founder, was they sort of went to someone initially as an advisor, and then the advisor fell in love with the idea, and they realized they could, they had this great relationship that they built over the, initial advising period, that it then made sense. And it's a bit of maybe of a lighter ask, to have somebody be an advisor versus a co-founder, right? It's sort of like jumping in and saying, hey, do you want to be my friend, or go for a beer, versus do you want to get married? Using your analogies, right? Like it's, you might sort of jump away.
The only thing that I would add to that is like, if you do bring on an advisor and you give them equity, make them work for it. Like,
oh yeah.
A lot of people just want to put advisor to like on their LinkedIn.
Yeah, you should have a formal advisory agreement, right? That lays out what they're going to be doing, how many hours per month, what's their earn out period. Absolutely. Absolutely.
What else?
More questions.
We should do this more.
One for Linda. What is the best way to find a seasoned mentor, which is actually coming really nicely after what we've just discussed?
I think it's similar, right? And again, I think it's not necessarily reaching out cold to people like, will you be my mentor? Because it kind of comes off strange. I think alumni networks, former business associates, former business colleagues, can I have a quick phone call with you to discuss, an idea? One thing I do advise, and it's kind of interesting now in this environment, but I know I get a lot of calls to go have coffee, and I only have so much time in my day, right? That I have to prioritize, and I can usually make time for a 15 to 20 minute call within a reasonable period. It is much harder to get me to go meet somewhere, or even take that time in my office, because it ends up being an hour meeting versus a 15 to 20 minute call. And so I think now is a great time, because people are used to now, I don't know if people necessarily have more time. I think it depends where they are with their business right now as they're managing through this crisis. But as things are starting to sort of, we're all hitting that new normal, people aren't commuting. So they maybe have, unless they have young kids at home that they're dealing with, which is definitely, definitely a challenge right now. Yeah, we can't hear it. But I think it's similar to what you're doing for a co-found. It's the same thing around really working your networks and networking into that.
Yeah, I would say that that's like a sad answer, but like that's what the Female Founders is here for. Unfortunately, I'm not there in Boston right now to help you. But yeah, like part of what we do is we run these day-long programs to bring it. It's almost like it's a conference where the ratio of speakers to participants is 2 participants to 1 speaker. And so it's like really, really, really relationship building. So we are built to connect founders with people and organizations that can move their business forward. And I can't offer that to you right now because we are, remote, but please do sign up, like femalefounders.org. It's free to everybody. And we have an online community, and, we will be doing mentor matching once again, as soon as it's viable to do so, or we'll figure out a way to do it online as well. I really want to I agree so hard with Deb's point about making it be really thoughtful about what you ask of people. Like, if you think that somebody is seasoned enough to be your mentor, that probably means that lots of other people think that as well. I can't tell you how incredibly frustrating it is to give someone some of your time and have them not be prepared, or have them not value your time as much as when you're super constrained on time and you can't mentor everybody. So just really bring your whole self, be really thoughtful. One thing that I love when people do this, and I've started doing it myself, is when you reach out to me, or you reach out to Deb to ask for advice, I agree with don't say, would you be my mentor? Because that's almost like getting married. But do ask a specific question, something that we can answer over email, start with a small ask and then increase the ask as you build the relationship, rather than cold call for an hour of the time. That's sort of disproportionate to the level of investment that we feel over somebody that we've never met before. That said, by and large, I would say that not everyone, but particularly with women, nearly every woman that has gotten to a certain stage in her career, nearly everyone wants to give back. So don't hesitate to ask. Just bring your whole self and do it intelligently. And I'm craving to be there and help in person. We are very much dedicated to giving you guys access. So just please sign up online.
So it's interesting you say that, Leslie, right? Because I think your network is the same as ours, right? I mean, different network is very similar how they operate. Like our members want to be helping people. They want to be mentoring them. Even now they realize it's going to be harder. You know, they're looking for ways to help. And so I think finding those channels, and again, you know, another shout out for accelerators and incubators, you know, they have very big formal networks. Also, again, I'll shout out for alumni groups. You know, I met up that company I told you I never actually talked to through one of my my alma maters that said, Deb, will you talk to this founder? And, you know, I took the call and we just really hit it off, and we agreed to try it again, I don't know, a month later, and then just started steamrolling from there.
Thank you. So we have more questions coming, and the next one is coming from Ashley. I have a sports and entertainment tech company focused on fan and ticket and travel experience. We got 2 big accounts, Major League Baseball and 2020 Tokyo Olympics. We got tractions. What do you suggest about fundraising at this time when events are canceled or postponed? We just launched Fan.
Yeah, I've got an investment in a sports focused company as well. I was on with them this week. It's you know, I think you have to focus your messaging on the long term. So you have these accounts. I would be making sure you're chatting to your account reps, and, you know, understanding their challenges and how can you be useful. You know, everyone's going to understand the changes going on for both of those, you know, right, for both of those right now, but they will come back, right? They're working on their strategies of how they're going to come back. And we know it's now going to be 2021 for Tokyo. But I think it's really maintaining them as customers, showing investors how you're actively working with them as customers. But it's also going to be the back end of, you know, how are you managing your costs given this environment? You know, we're having lots of conversations with founders of what's your worst case scenario? You know, how are you going to cut your burn? How are you going to conserve cash? If you have to go to market, I'd say if you can avoid it, I'd avoid it for 3 months. Like, let's let stuff settle down. If you're in the middle of a raise, if you can get to a close, get to a close. But it's, you know, it's going to be really having to sell the story on how you've managed your customers during this time and kept them on board. People understand you have to grow and you've got to find the investors. The other piece of this, and I'll turn over to Leslie, is some, you know, investors and funds, you know, will have dry powder, right? If they just closed a fund, they're going to be making new investments. They're going to be looking for deals. It's going to slow down. It's not that they're not going to invest, because this is a dollar cost. You know, you've got to build a portfolio of companies. And so no one, if they have a new fund, can say, I'm not going to invest. And so it's about finding the people who do actually have dry powder that, you know, that you can be talking to and having them be productive. Leslie, other.
I mean, I'm saying it's Ashley. So Ashley, I wish I could do 2 things right now: see your face and give you a hug. This is a hard sell right now. Sports and entertainment tech company focused on ticket and travel experience. I think that's a really hard sell right now. I'm just going to be super, super honest. Because like no investor understands in any way, like whether anybody is going to be able to travel for 18 months. So it's not just about your events, it's whether your customers, you know. So what I would say is, I don't know much about your company, but like, are there things that you can do to have like a robust customer experience while there are no in-person events, right? Like, could you do a quick pivot to e-gaming? Could you, like, things like that? I'm seeing a lot of like a very hot space right now in the like esports and gaming entertainment. So like if you can kind of like do a quick pivot to help people entertain themselves while they are stuck at home, I think that would warrant a quick fundraise. But going out to fundraise right now for something that requires physical travel and physical attendance to sporting events that are super uncertain, I just think is a really hard sell in general. And I wish that I could say this to your face and with a hug, but I can't do either.
Yeah, to build on that, like, is there a way you can pivot your technology to that, you know, to that? We're seeing that with a bunch of companies where they're pivoting, you know, maybe they're supposed to be doing X and they're like, here's how we're responding to Y, because they realize they can't, like, their original X isn't the highest priority right now.
Yeah, that's a hard one.
Another
Would
question.
do anything you could to conserve cash to get you till we see that things are reopening.
question from Jessica to Deb. A question for Deb. Do you or Golden Seeds in general plan to continue to invest during this pandemic, or do you anticipate taking a break from investments and focus on relationship building and helping your existing teams until markets resettle?
Yeah, we've been talking about this, right? Both from the Angel Network and the the fund basis, and folks are willing to continue looking at deals. I just think the bar got higher for things on it. Again, our fund is we just had a close, and so we do have dry powder. So we're not looking just for relationship. I would say, we're trying on our own to triage, like we're trying to understand the existing portfolio companies, where they at, who suddenly are we going to have to carry. And something to understand about the angel market is initially angels make a lot of new deals, and then they build a portfolio, and then it starts shifting. And you see across angel groups, it's 60-40 of new follow-on rounds, or 50-50 new follow-on rounds. I think we might see that shift to more like 40-60. In terms of less going into new right now and more going into keep existing companies going and running, right? Because we've made those commitments. But on the flip side, I think, and again, I wish I could see people's faces as I say this, as Leslie said, I think valuations are going to get more rational right now, and things had gotten pretty frothy in the market. Especially for angels, things were really getting priced out for some of them. And I think a good deal is a good deal. A good deal is a good investment. A good business is a good business. Everyone understands it's going to be a really rocky 3 months, but if it's a good business and it's a good team, they're going to figure out how to get through this, and investor money will be there. These are very risky assets for us as investors. We know that. It's not what will people maybe be dialing back because of the stock market? I think it's less to do with the pandemic and more where does the stock market end up when all this comes out, will really dictate how much appetite people have. So it's a kind of a wishy-washy answer because we don't know yet, but we do know people did keep investing, in 08, 09. It's just terms differed, right? And it's become, I'd say it's pretty much been a founders funding market. It might shift back to a investor funding market for a little bit.
Thank you. Another question from Diana. Is it rude to connect with investors or potential mentors on LinkedIn, or like cold connecting to start building relationships?
I mean, I don't think it's rude, but I don't think it's super effective. That's the reality. So like what I would say is if you look for them on LinkedIn, find people that you know in common and ask to be introduced that way. I think that is a much more effective way to connect with people. I joke that like if I could convert the number of people that ask me to join their LinkedIn every day into newsletter subscribers, I would have, it's like crazy. Like I get dozens every day. And I don't even know why they think they know me. So I just don't think that that's very, I didn't mean that as like, that came off braggy. I didn't mean it that way. Like, LinkedIn has a very weird thing where like they let anybody connect with you. And like more people connect with me on LinkedIn than like follow me on Twitter on any given day. Whereas like one is like private and the other is public. So I don't think it's a very effective channel, but I also don't think it's rude. And so, try it.
Yeah, I think what if someone just links into me and I don't know, like I had just, met them at an event or something like that. I don't consider it rude, but I don't necessarily respond because similar to Leslie, like they go into a bulk filter. If they do, I do scan it though, like once a week or something. I'll look and see if I missed something from someone. I do think it's helpful to put at least, if you don't have a connection in, like a first degree connection that can connect you to that person, or whatever, second degree connection, at least some sort of a note as to why you're reaching out. Because then it gives me something I can, if I think I can respond to. But just sort of a blanket, I just want to I just want to connect with you. But I do respond. If someone I know says, Deb, will you talk to Leslie? Right. I make time to at least start that conversation.
Me too.
Continuing on, we have a question from Trisha. What characteristics do you find most valuable in a CEO when evaluating their business?
You want me to start with that one, Leslie? Or so, for me, for CEOs, I want to know that they know the industry they're going into, or if they don't, that they've been able to build an advisor team around them who knows that, or an actual team, co-founding team around them that knows that. And then I am looking in the process of working with them both through like early stage, getting to know them and pitching, and then especially during diligence, how do they respond? How do they react? So I come from a strategy and operations background. I ask a lot of questions, and do they get defensive, or do they sort of process what I'm trying to help get them to explain to me? If I offer some recommendations, do they just take them, right? Which means they're not sifting, as I think Leslie, you said earlier, you're not shifting and making decisions, or do they say, yeah, Deb, but here's how my business actually runs, right? This is what we've learned. And so for me, through that process, I'm trying to understand, is this someone I can work with? Because to Leslie's point about co-founders, you're early investors, you're also with for a long time, right? If we're a lead investor, we're probably taking a board seat, whether it's me or it's someone that, I think would be better in that seat if I'm the lead investor. I know it's been really interesting this past couple of weeks of how often I'm on the phone. Like I always tell my CEOs when I first invest, like, you can call me anytime. And I tell you, they've all been taking me up on that this last couple of weeks. And that's who that's who as I'm going to be making an investment. I want to make sure that there's someone who's going to reach out. Like, I mean, maybe rambling a bit, but I don't want someone who thinks they're going to know it all, because they're not going to know it all. And they're not going to know what's going to come down the line. I want to know that they're going to be able to reach out and have the right resources around them to know how to take advantage of those resources around them. And as I said, this past couple of weeks has just been, it's been unprecedented. And that's being said a lot, but it really, I've had a 30-year career. Like, this goes beyond anything I've ever had to deal with.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, so I would say the founders that we see, or the CEOs that we see, be more successful have, everybody is their own person, and by and large, there's more than one way to be a great CEO. So like, there's no cookie cutter, like there's no checkboxy type of thing. That said, I think in the long run, which for startups is like 3 years, right? Just kidding. No, what we see is, like, first of all, CEOs that like I gravitate to and want to like support more and invest in are more along the lines of like very, very, very confident, but also very, very, very humble. And there's like this very unique combination. It's almost like, I like to say that it takes a lot of humility to be truly confident in yourself, because you're able to recognize both your shortcomings and your strengths, and like not be like weird about it, right? Like, I'm really good at this, I'm really not great at this. So that idea that like, I got this, I'm on top of things, like, you might scare me, but you're not going to rattle me. That's one thing that like just screams like perseverance. Like, this person is going to be okay no matter what the world throws at them. I think that's one thing that in general I like to see. And then the other thing is they're good with people. And this gets tested and tried as the company scales and they learn that they're not great people managers. But a CEO is not going to be effective unless they are able to bring people on board, period. Like, you have to bring investors on board. You have to bring employees on board. You have to like convince your team to keep working against all odds, right? Like, through crazy things. Like, you have to sell. Like, everything that a CEO does is about convincing other people of a crazy vision that only they have. And if they're not good with people, and in like long-term good with people, not just like snake oil salesman, right? Like long-term, like building relationships, like I can sustain a relationship for years and years and like deliver on my promises, like that type of good with people. That's what like, if you don't have that as a CEO, you're just not going to go very far. Like, maybe you'll go far for like, maybe you'll get like a quick exit, but like in life, like it's just not somebody that like an investor is going to have a great relationship with in the long term.
Building off of that, how about the actual message? What makes a message stand out for you?
You want me to start, Leslie, or you want to start?
Yeah, I really would have to rack my brain because like
Okay.
I don't even know.
Yeah, so for me, it's a compelling market need, right? And it's that you have a unique solution for it, right? So it's not a me too. It's not we're the next, someone's already doing this and we want to come in and do it different or do it better. But show me that there's a clear customer need and that you understand how they will buy that. Again, I do a lot of tech and B2B, let's call it investing versus consumer. So it might be consumer could be different. But it's really showing me that that's a clear customer need. You understand the market, you understand how to sell into that market, and that you've actually talked to some of the customers, whether they're customers or now or not, I think are really important. Just sort of having an idea, but I haven't gone and talked to customers doesn't fly. I co-invest with someone who for years has been pushing, you need to have 100 potential customer interviews, right? And before you start kind of building or trying to go get funding. And, I think that's really important because I'm going to want to talk to customers or potential customers before I write a check to this. And most investors will want to do that, at least in the sectors I invest in. Now it's different. I also do some life sciences. So that's different because they're obviously pre-customer. Then we're looking at different things. But Leslie, did that open up any differences?
Yeah, and I was thinking like specifically on the cold call, like what makes a cold call stand out. And like, honestly, it's really, really, really difficult. Which is why I don't think cold calling is super effective as like a strategy. But I one of the funny things, I think that I read somewhere, I wish that I had come up with this. I did not. I read it on Twitter. Somebody said that being a startup CEO means writing a blurb about your company and iterating on it every day for the rest of your life, basically. Like, and it is such an accurate description about my life. Like I'm constantly just like writing blurbs for like my bio and like the startup and like what we do in the program. So like have a really great blurb is like my tip to you. I would say a great blurb is one that like makes me want to know more, which is a little counterintuitive because a lot of people think that they have to put everything in the blurb. That's not true at all. You just need to put enough to make me want to click and like, look further. Like, this is horrible, but like think clickbait, like,
no,
like,
I agree. Like, I tell people, you always have to have your 30-second, like, give me, you've got me in an elevator, or you've got me for 30 seconds at the end of an event or something. And then if I say, well, tell me more, tell me of that version. And then I want to see your pitch deck, right? Or then I want to, and sometimes I have people who come at me with the full thing and I'm like, I'm not able to even process this yet, but you've got to have that 30-second telling me what you do. And then you'll see whether I'm interested or not.
And even if I say this, I just want to acknowledge that it's like really hard and I'm not great at it. Like it's
right. No, it's not, it's hard.
Really hard to do. So, share it with your friends. Like that's one thing that we don't do enough. Just like share it with people and ask for very honest feedback. And don't take it personally.
We will probably take one more question, and I think it's a wonderful one to end this discussion. From Diana, any positive empowerment or general advice for founders during these times?
Deb, you want to go first?
Yeah, I think, have confidence in your idea, right? And recognize, although it may be a challenging funding environment, just go in knowing, everyone's going to be getting asked tough questions and you're prepared and you know how to have the answers and you can do this. Women generally we find are much more prepared, right? They know the answers. They're actually usually conservative in their projections and know that you probably have done more to be prepared for those discussions and you got this, right? And so it's a bit of the, I know there's kind of some stuff around imposter syndrome, but just realize you can go in and I'd say, 99% of the women I've seen pitch so much better than the men are so much more prepared, but be prepared and real and just recognize that prep will pay off.
Yeah. Yeah. So let's see. So first I would say, adapt. Use as an opportunity to be super scrappy, and like there is nothing sacred about your startup anymore. Everything has to go back on the table and be reconsidered. And like, think Darwin, like think origin of the species, like the most adaptable in the species are the one that survive. And so that's the first one, is like, this is a time to reevaluate every hypothesis that you had, every belief that you had about your company. Um, so that's the first. The second is, I mean, I want to even say this to myself, like, we will come out of this. I don't know where you guys are today and how you're feeling today. I have gone up and down like in the past 4 weeks. Um, and like, you know, this is, I feel like we're in a Hollywood movie right now. And I like to, I joke with my parents. I'm from Costa Rica, even though I live in Seattle now because I met my husband here, but I'm from Costa Rica. My family's all down there. And we have this running family joke that like every time there's a Hollywood movie about the end of the world, it happens in New York and LA. And this time it's like in Costa Rica too. And like, we're like, wait, like they sold us a lie. So, you know, maybe it's too soon to start joking about what's happening, but I do want everyone to know that like, if you can remember what it feels like for the market to be growing again, that will happen again. Like it will. It might not happen this month, it might not happen this week, it might not happen in the next quarter, it might not even happen in 2020, but it will happen again. And like, just think of like how great that's going to feel. And then the last thing, and this is, you know, one of the things that I see a lot of our members do is punish themselves for failing way more than the men do. Way more. Like, and I just want to say to everybody today that like right now, if there was ever a time when it was okay to fail, this is it. Like, it is totally okay to try and give up. Totally. Like, I hope you don't. I hope you like find success, but I want everybody here to know that like, if you are a founder and a CEO or whatever, like you get more than one chance. You get more than one at bat. You can come back with you can take the lessons, come back with a different idea, come back with a new team. Like, you know, tell us how you use this time to grow. If you fail at your company right now, it's fine. Like most of us will. And I don't want you to punish yourself for it. And the funny thing is that like a year ago, I was saying the same thing to founders that like, hey, you've done this for 5 years. It's okay to move on. It's okay to move on. And like, we might not feel that way because as women, we do get punished for failing. But in the startup world, having a failure behind you is not a bad thing. It just means that like you've tried. You have more experience than a person who like doesn't know when to let go. And so I know that might not be the most empowering thing to hear. But the empowering part about it is that like, if this one doesn't work, the next one might, and you're just holding yourself back from trying something new.
So Leslie, as you were going, I had 3 things that came up that as you were talking. So one was see your way through the no's. You're going to get a lot of no's in this. So take it in, right, and process that feedback, and then figure out how you have to adapt going forward as you're doing that. That was some advice I got from a founder years ago. Second was humor helps, right? And so do remember like to try and get some humor in your day. You know, Facebook and Twitter are great for that right now, potentially. And then I'm from Boston, so I'm going to go with Senator Warren. You know, the memes around Senator Warren at one point, which was nevertheless she persisted. And, you know, I think as women, let's, you know, nevertheless, you know, she persisted, and you guys persist as founders.
Totally.
Thank you very much. It's been a wonderful discussion. Thank you, Deb. Thank you, Leslie. Everyone on the line, if you're still here, I hope you're giving a round of applause to our wonderful presenters. We also ask you to please take a little survey we've developed for all of you. It's just one single question. The link is in the chat box. Thank you for tuning in. It's been a wonderful discussion. We are having another session starting in 1 minute, and it is a keynote address by Claudia Reuter, General Manager at Techstars Americas East, and she is going to talk about women at work. And that is it for the day. Thank you very much.
Great.
It was wonderful having you.
Thanks, Yulia.
Thank you.